Hey TCSTV viewers, it's Evelyn coming to you live from the camera store. Tonight we're very excited to present Getting Creative with Photography with the founder of Lensbaby, Craig Strong, who I'm going to introduce shortly. But before that, I want to mention a few things. Of course, we are going live tonight. So we have our TCSTV Live Dream team working behind the scenes. And tonight we have Drew and Brett working their magic. So hopefully everything goes smoothly. But if not, always stay tuned to the chat. And this is where you can participate. And the best thing that we love about doing live streams is being able to interact with all of you. I know there's already some chatter happening. We have a couple people from overseas in the UK. I also noticed we had Darcy from DP Bike. Shout out to him. If you haven't seen already, we released a video on the Sony a6700 and Darcy is in that video doing some awesome BMX tricks with his buds. So definitely check that out. Hopefully we can give him some inspiration on some cool things to do with Lensbaby. I also wanted to let you know that we have partnered with Lensbaby. We are the official Canadian dealer for Lensbaby products. And for this event, for all you viewers, we have a deal for 10% off Lensbaby products. So I'll be putting that link in the chat here shortly once I do the introductions here. I also wanted to mention that we have a photo contest underway that is also sponsored by Lensbaby. So it's just in time for the Stampede. If you're wondering why I'm wearing this crazy hat here, it's Stampede in Calgary. So there is a huge rodeo carnival, all kinds of crazy stuff happening right in the inner city, and it's such a perfect time to make cool photographs. And because of that, it's the Creative Summer Photo Contest, and anyone can join. If you're in Canada, you're eligible for the prizes. The grand prize is valued at $500, which includes a $100 gift card to the camera store, a Lensbaby Omni Deluxe Collection 2, and some swag. Plus, one winner for each category will receive a Lensbaby Photography Accessory Surprise Pack, which is worth $200. And the categories are kind of fun. So they're a little different than, categories like landscapes, macro, whatever. They are actually themes of different emotions. So we have joy, disappointment, indulgence, and thrills. And if you are from around here, you know that all of those kinds of emotions are really easy to come by at the Calgary Stampede. So check out all the details at thecamerastore.com under the blog, and hopefully you'll join our contest. It goes until July 16th. So now that we got all of that fun stuff out of the way, I really am honored tonight to be able to introduce our guest. This is the founder of Lensbaby, Craig Strong. So he's co-founder and chief creative officer at Lensbaby, and he has transitioned from a staff photographer position at a group of weekly newspapers to photographing for the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times, Sports Illustrated, and numerous other magazines, newspapers, and agencies. He also spent over a decade doing freelance commercial, wedding, and portrait work, and he found that there was kind of a lack in the market for affordable tools to realize some of the creative, evolving photographic vision that he had. And so he started thinking of some of his own. So I'd like to welcome to you, Craig Strong. Thanks so much for joining us on TCSTV Live.
Hi, Evelyn. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me and for that great introduction.
Yeah, we had lots to talk about today, so it's hard to get it all out. But we're so appreciative of this partnership that we've developed with Lensbaby. You have such a great team. Work really closely with Jonathan and Michael and everybody there, and they're always so awesome. So big shout out to them. But yeah, we're going to talk about photography tonight. So first of all, tell us a little bit about what Lensbaby is. I mean, it's kind of a crazy name. So how did this come to be?
Well, it came to be from my my long vision of or a career of working with the most perfect lenses I could afford to be a fly on the wall. And after I got pretty good at that, I started to want to do something a little more with a little more flavor to the style that I had. And I was sharing a studio with some art photographers, fine art photographers. They were doing cross process. They were using lenses or plastic cameras, 120 plastic cameras to create weird stuff. And when I went digital, all of a sudden I went, I wonder what I could do that's off the beaten path that I wasn't willing to do before because it was costly, with film, and it wasn't so easy to learn because I'd have to wait for that film to come back or develop myself. So that's where it all started, was kind of a dissatisfaction of I'm a little burned out on taking perfect pictures, and what can I play with and what can I have fun with? And quickly it became fun for me, and then that caught on with a lot of my photographer friends. They all wanted me to make them one, and what one was at the time was things I would get off of eBay, and I would take them. I've actually got the very first one here.
Well, that's great.
Oh, here it is. And it's a speed graphic lens on a piece of shop vac hose snapped into a body cap that had a hole cut in it. And this allowed me to block out the light and focus. I didn't think this would be a workable focusing mechanism. I just thought it was going to tell me essentially what kind of effects I could do if I tilted. But it ended up being the foundation for what we launched in 2004.
Awesome. And what are some of the new things that Lensbaby has come out with? Because you guys are always creating and revolutionizing what Lensbaby is all about. So what are you most excited about these days?
Yeah, well, the most recent thing is our combination of the optic swap system, which is this is the Composer Pro 2. It tilts, it focuses, it has interchangeable optics that you can take one optic out and change it from an 80 millimeter flat field lens to a 35 millimeter flat field lens. I've got a 35 millimeter curved field lens for different effects. And what we've done is we've taken this system, which has been around since 2008, and we've married that with the Omni system. So if I take this Omni adapter for Composer Pro 2, It just locks solidly onto the Composer Pro. I can still focus. I can still change my apertures, and it's got a solid lock there. Let me focus my camera. And these extension arms let me put this out in front of even the longest optics, which is, this is our longest optic here, and have effects. So you've got the effect of the optic swap system. You've got the effect of one of about 3 dozen different effect wands that we've got from the color pack. We've got several that come with the adapter, and that's what's newest. So this is really taking layers and putting more layers on those layers in terms of what you can do effect wise with your Lensbaby, with your Omni. And I'm excited about this because these were previously incompatible and now they're married. So it's pretty fun.
That's very exciting. Are you able to show us some examples of what people can do with Lensbaby?
Absolutely. I'm going to share a Lightroom catalog here with some images. This is from this is a sneak peek on an interview that I did with Kelly O'Donnell. And Kelly is shooting video here. This is her video setup. It's shot on a Composer Pro 2 with the double glass 2 optic. And some of the images that she's able to make with that through, through those layers. This one is actually on the velvet here, but you can see down below, you've got a color crystal. We have multiple things going on here with a reflective wand. We've got, this is, again, layers. This is a double glass 2 shot with Omni, and you can see on the left you've got reflections coming in. You've got the focus things going on with your curve field of focus that are happening. So layers upon layers going on there. I'm going to stop that share, and I'm going to take you one more place and show you some of the Omni effects that are possible here. This is from lensbaby.com. These are shot with the color pack, and we've got color films that'll create a color wash that can just impact one area of your image. We've got color crystals that have fractal effects plus colors depending on where they come from. We have a rainbow wand filter that you can just affect one area. So this is a perennial favorite, is our color pack for the Omni system. So there's a few samples from that.
That's very cool. What is your favorite Omni tool to put in front of the lens?
I'm the lens daddy. You can't ask me to pick a favorite here. I would say that the most it's probably what we've come out with lately, and that is because I'm on the development side of things. I end up I can't make that larger. I'm going to stop the screen share. I end up shooting all the stuff that's about to come out. So for me, my favorite is this layer upon layer upon layer that you're able to essentially just take your magnetic connection here and put on a different crystal. You've got your hands free once you've found your spot that you want to put it, and you've got your hands free to do your manual focus, which is important when you're using the autofocus, the non-autofocus lenses from Lensbaby. And just being able to take that edge effect, which I have in my hand, and I would say the Edge 35 is that lens that I was trying to make back in 2004, but I was a photographer. I didn't know how to do that. So I just went out and got a magnifying glass and created a camera lens around that. And so this is a very complex flat field lens, the Edge 35, and that slice of focus at that massive amount of tilt at 15 degrees, which is almost twice as much as most tilt shift lenses, gives you just a super dramatic effect. Looking down at things, you can create a miniature effect, even though things are huge, all sorts of stuff like that. So I'm not going to answer your question, but I'll say that the layers that I can get with this combination of the optic swap and the Omni system in our most recent offering is what I'm most excited about.
Excellent. And I just want to take a minute and mention with the Omni system how slick it is in terms of a package. I mean, of course, people could go out and put things in front of lenses, but to
Sure.
do it with having a kit where everything's magnetized, it comes in like such a nice pouch, it just makes your photography experience that much better. And I think it just adds a lot of fun to it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody loves magnets. They're magic. And to be able to not just have to go, get a cheap crystal and source a bunch from Alibaba, which you can, and then have a hand all tied up while you're shooting. We've gone out and curated the best effects that we can find and put them in various packages. And we're always coming out with something new and new shapes. We've got a shapes pack that's got reflections and shapes and colors and creates almost a creative aperture you can put it right over your lens and shoot through it. You can get some film leak type things. Yeah, there's lots of stuff. And I'm glad you like that magnetic effect or that magnetic connection, because it does give you that three-dimensional adjustability to be able to put it wherever you want and just leave it and know that, hey, this is what I have. I can pull it off, put a new one on, and keep shooting and not have to worry about my effect until the light moves or I move.
Well, and especially if you're someone that is shooting by yourself or you want to be able to get into different angles and that kind of thing, it becomes your arms, right? Instead of, and being
Yeah.
able to still shoot handheld as well, instead of having to put it on tripod, that kind of thing. What kind of tips do you have for people if they're getting into the Omni system to start exploring with it?
Well, I would do everything to the extreme. When you're shooting with your lenses, shoot them wide open to see how subtle it makes the effect. Shoot it stopped all the way down if you want to create more of a literal effect. And shoot wide, shoot telephoto if you're on a zoom. Just shoot everything to the extreme. Put the crystal dead center, put it off to the side. I mean, that's the beauty of this versus a standard filter, is you're able to affect just one area of your image with one effect and then have a separate effect coming in over another part of your image. So yeah, I mean, there's just a ton of different things that you can use, but going to the extreme in everything you're using just to see, like even when you're doing adjustments in Lightroom, let's pull those sliders all the way one way or another, just so you have that in your toolbox to figure out, okay, is this gonna give me a different way of seeing the world that I hadn't considered before, because I was just kind of tiptoeing around what it possibly could do. Just do whatever to the extreme in both directions.
Yeah. Now, I want to know a little bit more of again, the Lensbaby story. So how did the name Lensbaby even come about?
Well, I had been making these lenses for workshops, and I'd go to the workshops and they'd clean me out and say, I want to beta test them, and I'd walk away with none. And that had happened for about 3 workshops. I knew I needed a name for this, and I was brainstorming with my wife. I said I needed a name. She's a copywriter, or was doing copywriting at the time, and she just started asking me questions. Well, tell me about it. How is it different than a normal lens? And I said, at one point, I said, well, it's smaller, it's cuter, it's more fun. I want to say baby lens, but that takes me to Baby Ruth, which takes me to Caddyshack and Bill Murray in the pool. And before, she's just waiting for me to shut up. And as soon as I did, she said Lensbaby, and I went, okay, that's it. So it was a brainstorm between me and my lovely wife, and I love that memory. I know exactly where I was in the car. I almost turned around because we were going somewhere for a few hours. I was like, okay, now that it's out in the universe, I better go home and register lensbaby.com, because it's out there. But it was still there a couple hours later when I got home.
And that's what was going to stick. We had a question here about the velvet lenses.
Yes.
What makes the velvet lenses special? There's this kind of talk of like a glow effect. Can you speak to what that effect is like, and how those lenses can impact someone's photography?
Sure. And let me share a screen here, and I will I'll navigate in here while I'm talking. The velvet effect is going to, the way it's created is, we have a very complex lens design that gives you a flat field of focus, and well corrected at for detail, but not well corrected for spherical aberrations. So at the brightest apertures, you're going to get a lot of spherical aberrations over sharp detail, and that's pretty unique because the old imagons, they just weren't sharp. They had a lot of glow, but they did not have. They were 2-3 element lenses, and to be able to have that underlying detail be tack sharp, but be able to, at your various apertures, affect that by stopping it down. So from depending on the bright aperture of the lens, which is normally, or it's 1.6 on the Velvet 56, 1.8 on the Velvet 85, and then 2.5. Actually, it's 2.2 at the plus sign on the Velvet 28. But what that does at the brightest aperture is it gives you tons of this optically produced spherical aberration glow over your details, and still has underlying detail that's sharp. Okay, I obviously cannot talk and go to the Velvet page on Lensbaby at the same time unless I'm saying what I'm doing here. So,
while you do that, I'll just mention these Velvet lenses. They do come in a variety of the mounts, so you can get Nikon F mount, Canon EF. At least for now, no RF, but you can adapt, of course, EF lenses to Canon R bodies. And then there's also Sony E mount too, I think. Oh, and Fujifilm X mount, and of course Micro Four Thirds. So pretty much every camera system you have Velvet lenses.
Yep.
But yeah,
if it has interchangeable lenses, it works with Velvet. This was shot by Rachel Chomsky. She was one of our very first beta testers of this lens, and it's a really good example of the brighter apertures that gives that glow. And I don't know how good this is coming through on Zoom, but the ability to change the effect while you're looking at it that's in the DNA of Lensbaby, because I'm going to shoot different images if I'm seeing what my final effect is than if I'm thinking 4 or 5 steps ahead of what am I going to do and how many filters am I going to apply in post. It also has macro capabilities. You can see stop down. It's quite sharp. And so the variability of this lens is just stunning, because at the darker apertures, it just becomes this more classic, less glowy lens with very little effect. And then you open it up and you can give character to something like a landscape that you couldn't with a normal lens while you're looking through the camera, rather than planning ahead what you're going to do later. So
that's so interesting. So just to, I guess, reiterate it, so you're saying that the sharpness of the lens, it's well built for that, but then it's purposefully has these spherical aberrations. Is that correct?
Yes, spherical aberrations at the brightest apertures. And you can see too, the foreground bokeh is creating that bubble bokeh. You can see all these raindrops have that halo around them. That's a feature of some lenses in the background. We have that in the foreground. But then at the brightest apertures, you're getting very glowy images. And at the darker apertures, you're getting like this previous image here, tack sharp, just wonderful smooth bokeh in the background, a little bit of edge defocus, but then back to Rachel's image here with tons of glow, and underlying detail remains sharp, especially in the center on the Velvet 56 and the Velvet 85. Corner to corner, the underlying detail on the Velvet 28 is sharp, and that makes this my favorite astrophotography lens by far for skies, because as a kid I grew up without glasses. I squinted and I was able to pass all the tests, and nobody knew, including myself, that I needed glasses. But when I'd look up at the sky, each one of these stars would have a halo around it, and so having that in my photography now and being able to create images that have that effect, it's nostalgic in a very personal way.
A question here in the chat, can you adjust the velvetiness of the lens?
You can. At the brightest aperture, that's where it's going to have the most glow and the most velvety glow, and then as you stop it down at about f4, it's just very subtle. At f5.6, it's almost completely gone. And the challenge there is, because our eyes are used to seeing detail and contrast, line up at the same plane. Anything brighter than f5.6, you're getting a little bit of glow that is coming over those shadows and making them look gray, and you want to make them black, like it's for manual focus. So it takes a little bit of training to ignore the contrast. And oftentimes, if I haven't used the Velvet for a while, I will stop down to 5.6, focus, open up, not change my focus, and take the shot, just to ensure that, okay, I'm not getting tricked by the fact that there's this glow that tells my mind it's out of focus, and you know, eliminating the glow will make it be back focused. So if the eyes have no glow, the ears, at the brighter apertures, the ears are in focus, and that's a little frustrating for everybody.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to circle back to the new adapter for the Composer Pro 2 kit.
Yeah,
So the Composer Pro is the product that I know a lot of our team was familiar with, and it's grown a lot. Can you talk a little bit about what changed with the Composer Pro to the Composer Pro 2, like how that
absolutely. Yeah.
evolved?
Yeah, so the Composer Pro 2 is an all-metal construction, so it's much more solid, and it's much smoother in its operation. It also it's got ever so slightly less tilt because we, for some of our optics in their macro modes, they created some flare with the Composer Pro and the original Composer. So we created some flare reduction with that 1.5 degrees of tilt that we reduced it from, or 2 degrees, from 17 to 15. And because that's such a dramatic amount of tilt to begin with, it's not noticeable. I, you know, in my assessment, and yeah, so it's more solid, it's smoother, and overall just more durable as well. There's no rubberized focus or tension, because the tensioner is back here right now. It's made out of metal. That'll make it nice and loose, and then you tighten it down to make it tight. And because this is all knurled metal, it's going to be much more durable over time.
Awesome. Question here again, back to the Velvet lenses. Which focal length do you think is best for portraits, and why? What do you like?
Portraits, you know, I'm a huge fan of the 50 millimeter, so 56 on the Velvet, because of the getting into people's personal space. At first, it's very uncomfortable, but once you have spent a little bit of time in a more intimate distance to a subject, I feel like I can see deeper into their soul. I get better images over time. However, that 85 millimeter focal length is typically seen as more flattering because of the compression. So I don't see much of a difference in terms of that compression, and I find that the fact that I'm able to get in very close to my subject with the 56 millimeter, that outweighs any additional compression that might change the features in the image. So 56 for me, maybe for the general portrait photographer, 85.
Very cool. Now, before Lensbaby came to be, you mentioned that there wasn't a lot of other products in the market. Were there some different things that you tried, like to see if you could get cool effects with? Like, were you the kind of person that put like petroleum jelly on your lens, or like fabric and stuff like that? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I did not put petroleum jelly on my lens, and which has a really cool effect. I mean, it's messy though, obviously.
Very hard to get off, yeah.
But what I did do when I got my first digital camera, I went to New York like the next day. I got this Canon D30. It was a 1.6x crop. I threw in my 28 millimeter 1.8 lens. I didn't even bother to throw in my 20 just because I tended to only shoot as wide as 28. I got to New York and I'm like, I hadn't even counted on the fact that now I have a 45 millimeter lens that should be a 28, and I was so frustrated. So I walked around to those little camera stores on Times Square, and I found these super cheap video adapters, and I was screwing them on and taking them off, and they were priced at $950. And you know, if somebody's going to pay it, they'll take it. But eventually I made an offer. I got one for $90, including tax, and screwed it on there. And I started taking pictures with this on my 28, on my Canon D30. And that was a magical lens for certain things, for close focus, for it gave you a sweet spot of focus at the brightest apertures. As you stopped it down, it became more of a kind of okay fisheye with tons of bent lines. And so that was my first time that I put a non-recommended by anybody lens on the front of my SLR. Before that, I was shooting, aftermarket lenses, but not necessarily something that wasn't specifically matched to my camera.
We touched very briefly that a lot of the Lensbaby lenses will work with mirrorless products. Now, you guys actually came out with a 3-in-1 effect lens that's specifically designed with mirrorless cameras in mind, the Trio 28. Can you talk a little bit about how that lens works and the 3 different effects that you get?
Absolutely. Yeah, the Trio 28 gives you the ability to, on the fly, I don't think I have one handy here, but on the fly, just switch from one effect to the other. It's all built in. It's a turret, and that turret is off center so that whatever lens you've selected, it's centered on your image plane. And the 3 effects it has is sweep, velvet, and twist. And the twist is, if you're focused on infinity, you're going to have no twist. But if you're focused about 3 feet and you have a busy background, you're going to get, depending on the distance from the subject to the background and the subject to the camera, you're going to sometimes get just dramatic amounts of twist in there. But other times it just looks like a classic lens with a big sweet spot and a little bit of out of focus on the edge. The sweet spot in the suite, especially on full frame, is just tiny and small, and so you get all of this morphing of out of focus images, especially when you're shooting video imagery coming in from the outside and then coming into focus in the center and then exiting. And then the velvet is it's 28 millimeters, 3.5. It has probably the amount of glow of 2.8 on our normal velvet, so quite a bit of glow. And it does some amazing things with highlights, just this blooming that happens with highlights, especially when they're out of focus. And the hidden feature, though, in this that some people latch onto, and then that's the main way they shoot it, is you can put it between optics and get a double image from a single exposure, which is great for video because you're in camera, have 2 lenses they're looking at an angle at the world, so they're getting different subject matter, especially on the smaller sensors. It almost feels like you're looking at one world over here and another world over there on micro four thirds. It's less disparate subject matter on a full frame. But that ability to shoot through 2 lenses at once is really cool and one of my favorite features.
Excellent. And that kind of ties into the whole Lensbaby concept of shooting extraordinary. What does that mean to you, Craig, to shoot extraordinary? What do you encourage people to do when they're trying to expand their photographic visions?
Well, the biggest thing for me is to take risks, and to be able to say, okay, I'm willing to go out and shoot really poorly, so that I can eventually shoot extraordinary and have a breakthrough, and learning new things, shooting with new gear, applying one piece of gear to a subject matter it was never intended to work with. I never intended photojournalists to work with the original Lensbaby. Having had a photojournalism background, I didn't think that a sweet spot of focus would end up being the lens that the White House press corps shot Anita. Well, at any rate, it shot several major events when we first came out in 2004, 2005, because they're all looking for something unique, and they were forbidden to do it in Photoshop. And so to be able to do it optically, they did that. So taking risks, pushing the gear to its limits, shooting as far in one direction and tilt it all the way, tilt it not at all, and rack your focus back and forth, see what that effect is, and see what each one of these crazy little things can do for you, because taking those risks and risking failure is really the only way to shoot extraordinary.
Really. One of the other most recent products you guys came out with was the Double Glass 2. What's special about that? What's unique?
Yeah, the double glass 2 is we in 2008 we came out with the double glass optic. We had the double glass, the single glass, the plastic, and the pinhole zone plate. That's what we started our optic swap system and the composer and the Muse at the time. So it was our flexible body, which is now the Spark. And that was that was by far the most signature effect that we had was that one spot of focus, a tiny little spot wide open at f2.0, and then as you stop down, that sweet spot would get bigger. It's kind of the way the human eye sees, at least my eyes see, where I'm looking and I see one thing in focus and gradual blur as you move away from that. It's much more dramatic than that at the brighter apertures. And when we came out with that, we did not have an internal adjustable aperture. So you just dropped in round, basically little washers. They were made out of flexible magnetic material, and there were magnets inside the lens that would grab them and hold them. They just kind of levitated above the lens. It was nice and magical, but it was a pain when it came right down to it to change your aperture. And what we've done is we've taken the Sweet 50, which has a 12-bladed internal aperture, and everybody loves that. And we've gone back to the metal build quality of the double glass, and so it's all metal, the double glass 2, and it has two different apertures. It has the 12-bladed aperture that allows you to quickly change the look of your image by changing the aperture and making your sweet spot bigger, by stopping it down, making it smaller, by opening it up. And it has drop-in apertures. And what we've done is we've shipped it with a set of apertures that all have different shapes. You can layer those shapes on top of each other. You can stack as many as 3 apertures to get different shapes that don't necessarily come, and rotate them on each other to get different shapes. So it's the 2 apertures system from the original double glass and the more recent version of the double glass, which is the Sweet 50, combined with the build quality of the double glass. It's actually a bit better build quality in terms of it being all metal.
Well, that's great. And then, of course, you can experiment with the aperture shapes and shoot into the specular highlights. And that was actually my first experience with Lensbaby was
Really?
photographing with the different aperture shapes. And it was in the fall, and so getting a lot of pretty specular highlights through the trees with the leaves. And yeah, and that's kind of what sold me on the idea of Lensbaby. But that was before you had a lot of the current products. So I think that was maybe 2007. So it's a long time
Wow,
ago.
that's great. Yeah, good for you. And shooting it through the leaves, that's a way that you get all those spots of light, and then they each take on the shape of your aperture, or they'll morph in different directions when you have a round aperture, and anything that gives you detail in the background and a lot of contrast is going to give you some really amazing out of focus effects on any lens.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you guys, of course, have a ton of educators and ambassadors with Lensbaby. You kind of have this Lensbaby community. Can you talk
Yeah.
about how that has evolved and where people can see lots of examples and inspiration for Lensbaby?
Absolutely, yeah. We have over 200 ambassadors that are out there shooting Lensbaby gear and sharing it with the world, and it's really a privilege to work alongside them. And like I said, I'm doing a video series interviewing our ambassadors, over 3 images that they've taken with a single Lensbaby product. So hopefully that'll demystify some of our product line, because we have so many different things that you can use. And obviously, in anybody's hand, the images that are made with it are going to be different than the person next to them. I mean, literally, even if you're shooting the same subject matter, because of all the options and each of our personal vision of the world. But having that group of ambassadors is really core to the Lensbaby values. If we're not developing community around something that we have in common that is uniting rather than divisive, then I'm not sure what we're doing here. And let's not take a bunch of glass and metal and plastic and ship it around the world just to create something neat. And let's do this to unite people and to have something that we can believe in and that can make us grow. Try something new, come together, learn from the people that have been doing it for years. And that's what's great about the ambassadors, is they're just coming alongside people and saying, through Lensbaby forums and on Facebook primarily, obviously these days, but to be able to come in and just say, hey, that's a great start. What do you need help with? And here's some examples of things that I've been able to do, and really grow the vision, because it's not to copy each other. It's not to say I want to go create an image just like that. I'm going to go do this landscape photography class, and I'm going to figure out the focal length and the aperture and get it all in focus from here to there and whatnot. This is, literally standing next to someone, whether you're on a tripod or not, and there's just nothing the same about what you're seeing than what somebody else is. And so it can be a little mind-boggling because there are so many options. And so that's where it's really helpful to have people leading the way that have found where this disparate, odd collection of gear fits into their vision of the world.
Absolutely. And of course, the Instagram account for Lensbaby has such a wonderful collection of a lot of that work, a lot of examples. And I think seeing the examples is obviously is such a great way to kind of understand some of the capabilities that you can get with these things that you can't necessarily do otherwise. Also the YouTube channel too. You guys have so many great educational resources. And I also want to mention that in my career working in the photo business, there hasn't always been the best representation of having a lot of diversity and a lot of women. And I have to say, with Lensbaby, there's something that is to be said for having a lot of wonderful, powerful ambassadors that are women. And I don't know if that's something that's been conscientious, or if it's just, it happens to be that, this type of creativity really draws that such a wonderful, diverse group. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, we've had several of our long-term ambassadors come alongside us and just really help build that community, that have been women, that have been teachers, and it's changed their lives, and they want to step out and change the lives of others, and by introducing this thing that they can learn, that they can see where their particular vision is. So it has grown organically. We've had a lot of really wonderful women on our staff that have helped foster that over the years, and currently Valerie is heading up the ambassador program, and so she's ensuring that, hey, people are being taken care of. So there is the feminine energy in the Lensbaby community is really, really strong. Obviously I can't take credit for that, but it's happened, and I am so grateful for that.
It's definitely noticeable. And although we're starting to see a lot more of that change in that direction, I know not that long ago, 5-6 years ago, a lot of conferences and education was definitely very male-centric. So it's wonderful to see such a great collection of work from all these great women. There's a question here from Kimberly. Any plans to bring back the Lensbaby iPhone lenses?
I work in R&D, so I've got, in fact, I can see some on my desk here, not necessarily what you're asking about, but there's just all sorts of stuff that we're playing with. And I think the best bet that happens is you buy and share Lensbaby, so that we have the funding to be able to go out and create all sorts of stuff. Because I realize that, this is the camera that we're using, that, that 15 years ago, it just wasn't an option. And so, it's definitely on our radar, and would love to bring out something that would be super compelling for you to use with the camera in your pocket. But I'm not going to commit one way or another as to if and when that's going to happen.
Fantastic. And of course, some other ways to support Lensbaby is making sure that you join our contest, because we'd love to get some Lensbaby products in your hands. So I mentioned earlier this evening that we are running a photo contest right now until July 16th. So you can check out the details for that on the Camera Store website under our blog. I'm also just going to pop the link here in the chat so you can check that out. But there's some great categories. It's all kind of more of an emotional based category. So you can put your own interpretation on that. The categories are joy, disappointment, indulgence, and thrills. And we thought of that because the tie-in with the Stampede, but of course, lots of different summer things happening all around the world. So if you're in Canada, you can qualify for the prizes. And I will mention just one more time that the grand prize is valued at $500, including a $100 gift card to the Camera Store. You also get the Lensbaby Omni Deluxe Collection 2 and some swag, which we always love swag, especially when it comes from Lensbaby. You guys have really cool stuff. And then the winner of each category will receive a Lensbaby photography accessory surprise pack valued at $200. So some really fantastic prizes. What we want you guys to win. And so all you have to do is take your creative photo, put on Instagram, take the Camera Store and Lensbaby USA, and then in the caption list which theme you're entering, and then we will be choosing the winners and announcing them on July 19th. So definitely check that out. And we did set up the special promo with Lensbaby as being the Canadian dealer. So we have 10% off Lensbaby products. The link is pinned in the chat right now. So you guys can click that and start shopping for Lensbaby. And we're very excited. So thank you so much, Craig. I think this was really fun to chat about the products as always.
Absolutely. Thank you, Evelyn, for partnering with us so well and sharing with your community, because this is really about community, that they can do something different, that there is something that they can learn, that we can do that in a way that that the world of art and each of our personal contribution to that and satisfaction with our own expression of art is better. And I hope that's the case. But thank you so much. You do such a great job of spreading the word.
Thanks. And of course, at the Camera Store, we just love hearing about different tools that are kind of outside the box in a way. So often we're talking about the latest technology. There's lots of stuff going on with machine learning and precision and like perfect optics. And so being able to play around with things like the Omni system and all of the Lensbaby products to get some really cool effects just bring some fun into photography, I think. So thanks again, and thanks to all the viewers for watching tonight. We hope that you enjoyed this talk on getting creative with photography featuring Lensbaby. And if you have any further questions, feel free to comment afterwards if you're watching this on replay, and we'll try to get back to all of your questions as soon as we can. And of course, we'll catch you again very soon.